Welcome in everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single Wednesday and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson. Dylan, tough weekend of racing for Kyle. The results weren't as bad as both of the days really showed. If you watched the races, you would have been very surprised to find out that Kyle Larson was able to finish where he did in both races. Which one was your favorite one? I mean, the Xfinity one, obviously, the battle at the end was very exciting, and then on Sunday in the Cup Series race, it was just a uphill battle the entire night.
Yeah, I definitely think the Xfinity, you made a tweet, I'd have to agree. It had to be one of the best races of the year. I mean, just nonstop action. I mean, Kyle's car was absolutely hooked up. Going to the weekend, the story was pretty much Kyle being a lap down for both Cup and Xfinity. He had his tire cut early on in Xfinity from debris. NASCAR started throwing some cautions for the debris, getting kind of ridiculous, but ended up being two laps down there, started raining. He was a lap down before the red flag was thrown out. They were what, 4 laps away from being halfway point. So it
Yeah.
seemed like they kind of just wanted to rush it and just end the race at the halfway. Wouldn't have been a different outcome though. Gregson still would have won either way, but um, yeah, he ran faster times later on than the leaders. He was around 12th, 13th. At the end of the race, came off pit road 8th. Just absolutely just ran up the field there at the end. I mean, he just came out of nowhere. He made it from 8th to 3rd. He was third with 10 to go, and then we obviously saw, the battle with Creed and Gregson there. Larson haters in full effect, saying that it was dirty battling with Creed, even though Creed said nothing was wrong with the way he was raced. But the Larson haters are just starting to be more and more prominent. It seems as the weeks go on. Like the weeks before with Chase, it's hard to tell if it's Chase fans mad or Larson haters, but you can definitely see that the haters after that incident.
Yeah, Dylan, it seems like on our pages, on all of our social media, it's really ramped up the past couple of weeks. I feel like we're getting, I mean, up until this point in the season, I feel like we got more positive messages than negative, and like the last 3 or 4 weeks have just been 100% negative. We haven't seen any positivity. Even when Kyle won at the Glen, it was all the drama with Chase Elliott and the drama in the Xfinity race that weekend with Byron and Gibbs wrecking in that race. I mean, it's just like, dude, it seems like Kyle Larson can't do anything right for social media right now. I mean, everybody's just blasting him regardless of what he does, and it didn't slow down this weekend at all. Like you said, Sheldon Creed had no problem with the move that Kyle Larson put on him, and in my opinion, if anything, Sheldon was the one that kind of got Kyle a little bit loose and got into him there at the end of the race. And I do understand people, they want to see a guy like Sheldon Creed get his first win in Xfinity, and he's obviously racing for a championship in that series. But I think that's kind of the fun part about the Cup drivers being able to run a couple races in Xfinity. It's a good challenge for those guys, and it's like a Cup guy like Larson's going to come out there and put it on the line every single time he's in that car, and he was very close to putting that 17 car in victory lane for Hendrick Motorsports.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the contact kind of started there when Creed let open the outside for Larson. That's where he was getting most of the run. And by the time his car was kind of at Creed's quarter panel, he kind of, threw a little bit of block, had a little bit of contact there. But at the end of the day, that's Darlington. I mean, most of the cars don't leave Darlington without a Darlington stripe down the side of their car. So getting to the wall there is pretty normal. Yeah, I mean, the Cup guys racing Xfinity guys, it only makes them better. I mean, these guys are trying to work their way up and hopefully eventually get a cup ride. So when you put the best next to them and just race real hard, they're only going to get better. That experience helps. And yeah, the hate, it's getting pretty. I mean, it's kind of good and bad. It's starting to feel like the Kyle Busch like universal hate is starting to come in for Larson. Anything he does is wrong. Everyone
Yeah.
hates it, but I mean, hey, if they're hating, they're still cheering for you. That's more publicity for you either way.
And the funny thing about it is Larson doesn't do anything like Kyle Busch does to get
Right.
that negative attention. I mean, it's like it's just constantly every week it's something new that why somebody's got to hate on Kyle Larson, and we're obviously not paying much attention to it anymore moving forward. Cup Series, another tough one for Kyle. 12th place finish. I'll take it. It honestly felt like a win, Dylan, after everything that Kyle went through in that race. Started seventh and didn't really look to have the speed early on in the race, but early on in stage one, Kyle Larson reported on the radio that he thought he was blowing up again for the second week in a row. We thought it was all going to crumble to the ground. Kyle Larson's championships hopes out the window. But ultimately, Cliff Daniels brought him down pit road. They didn't find anything. They sent it back out and pretty much said, "Look, we're going to run this thing till we blow up," and he never blew up.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he said he pulled in because it was similar to Daytona when he blew up. He said he thought he was down a cylinder. He said it felt sour. Stuff wasn't right. Power was messed up. All sorts of things. Um, yeah, like you said, they brought him down pit road. They literally just lifted up the hood and looked at it. Not much there. It kind of hindsight. I just wonder if that did really anything. It kind of just parked in there in the pit stall, or if he could have just kept running and not lose those, or eventually go 3 laps down from sitting there in the pit stall. So hindsight 2020, it always happens every race. What could have happened? Blah blah blah. But obviously, he ultimately got back on the lead lap. Decent finish. It was tough. He had to grind to get those laps back. Um, yeah, it was pretty tough race. 12th place definitely seems like a win after what happened. For a while there, he was under the cutoff playoff bubble,
Right.
so it was looking real bad there. But he sits seventh, so uh, a lot of playoff guys they got a bad end of the deal that race. So at least he came out looking pretty decent.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of touch on next. I mean, so many problems for so many playoff drivers in this race. Chase Elliott obviously finished dead last. He was out of the race after an incident, and Kyle Busch very dominant. I mean, well behind Truex, like probably the second best car, and he ends up having an engine issue. Kevin Harvick's car just catches on fire. I mean, I know he wasn't happy about that one. Chase Briscoe had problems. Larson, like we said, had problems. Ross Chastain had problems in the race, so it was definitely not the best race for a lot of playoff drivers. But when we look at the standings, Dylan, kind of some different names like at the top of the board with Chase Elliott falling down a little bit. He's still plus 14 to the cut line, but Joey Logano now in possession of the points lead. Obviously hasn't clinched a berth into the second round, but he's plus 38 going into Kansas this weekend.
Yeah, not too surprising there. I mean, Logano 1 and Byron 2, they were two of the strongest cars in the first Darlington race until, Logano dumped Byron kind of, but I digress. Um, yeah, it definitely shook up. I mean, Harvick, that's tough. He's all the way down to 16th now. I think he had arguably a top 10 car before he caught on fire, and he definitely let NASCAR know and the officials that he wasn't happy with the next gen car. He seems to be the one driver that's really outspoken about how bad the next gen car is, and he's not really afraid to voice his opinion. His crew chief Rodney Childers, he's even said on social media, a lot of things are wrong with this next gen, and they just don't really want to fix it. But I mean, hopefully we see some changes. A lot of people have been addressing the safety aspect of it after we've seen some drivers take some hard hits, still shaking up.
Yeah.
Hamlin, one of them, he actually sat the Xfinity race because he was still sore from his contact at Daytona. Yeah, the JGR car is super fast. Truex was insanely fast. I bet that was kind of bittersweet for a while after missing the playoffs. Bush, second fastest, blew his engine too. Whole crowd cheered. Crowd went wild.
Yeah, crowd went wild for that one.
Yeah, that was louder than a win at the end. That's the loudest crowd I've heard.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy. Packed that crowd though. That was pretty
Oh,
insane to see.
yeah.
Absolutely packed.
The crowd was awesome when they were showing it on. I guess yeah, it was on USA, not NBC. But um, I mean, the crowd just looked amazing there at Darlington. I know they said it was sold out, but it sometimes tracks say, "Oh, it's sold out," and then you look at the grandstands and it looks like it's half empty, and you're like, "Where did they get
Right.
that number from?" But it definitely looked like a sold out crowd at Darlington, and I think that the Xfinity race definitely was better than the Cup race, but the Cup race wasn't horrible. We've talked about it a ton, but it's just way harder to pass in the Cup Series this year with this new car. And yeah, I mean, Darlington wasn't a terrible race. It was. I thought Darlington was one of the better races earlier in the season, despite Kyle Larson blowing an engine in that one too.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, Darlington's always been one of my favorite tracks. That in Bristol. I mean, it's always there's always something going on, always action packed. So, yeah, it definitely wasn't bad. I mean, like I said, bad rap for a lot of people's favorite drivers in the playoffs. But other than those incidents, I think the racing was pretty okay. I mean, I was kind of bored there watching Kyle try to grind back up on those laps down, but I mean, he got it at the end and pretty much walked away with a victory there.
Yeah, so moving on to Kansas this upcoming weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series race number 2 of the first round. Like I said, nobody's locked up a berth into the second round. A win for any of the playoff drivers can take them straight into the round of 12. Obviously, Eric Jones winning the race at Darlington kind of spoiled the chances of anybody locking up a berth into the round of 12 from this past weekend. But going into Kansas, Dylan, do you expect the JGR cars to kind of carry over some of that speed that they had at Darlington? Because man, it looked like they were just in a completely different world compared to some of the other teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Toyotas have been pretty decent. I mean, they were decent in that first Kansas race. Obviously, Kurt Busch picked up the win there, Larson second. So, I mean, Larson's proven to be pretty decent at Kansas. He picked up that playoff win that last year in Kansas with the 2021 Gen 6. He was strong there, just didn't have enough speed earlier in the year for Kurt Busch. Could have squeaked out the win, but he just couldn't really get it going. But 15 starts, 7 top 10s for Larson, 5 top 5s. Should be expecting good cars around the patriotic scheme. So let's hope they hook the car up, and I just hope they look over the engine a little bit more. I mean, it's kind of getting crazy. I mean, Phoenix, Darlington, Daytona. Thought we had it again here at Darlington once again. Even Byron, he had similar issues. Forgot to touch on that. He thought his engine was blowing up when he was leading the race. He kind of fell back a little bit. So raises the question: is there something wrong with these Hendrick engines, or is it just kind of bad luck? But yeah, I hope he has a good one at Kansas. Don't want to see that again.
Yeah, so like we said, Kyle Larson currently sits plus 17 to the cut line. Actually went in. I mean, I think he actually ended up gaining points to the cut line despite like like having such a bad race. I think he went in like what was it plus I don't know what was it, Dylan, like plus 12, I think.
So it was plus 12 or plus 13, I
Yeah,
believe.
so either way, I mean, he gained a couple points to the cut line with everybody else having so much trouble. So, obviously not the win that we wanted, but going into Kansas, like you said, strong track there. So, really going to look forward to his chances there at Kansas. Uh, other racing this week. Finally, we haven't had anything for 2 weeks now on dirt for Kyle Larson, but this one we've talked about it a couple times in the past. Been confirmed for a while. Silver Dollar Speedway this week, Wednesday night. If you're watching this today on Wednesday, then tonight Kyle Larson will be on Flow Racing in the 360 Sprint car. They're at his Silver Dollar Speedway that he co-promotes with Brad Sweet and Colby Copeland. That can be found. That's on Flow Racing at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on Thursday night, back in the 410 sprint car with the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink sprint cars on Dirt Vision at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Late nights for us folks on the East Coast, Dylan, but I definitely understand why because forecasted temperatures, forecasted highs in Chico, California for Wednesday and Thursday, 109 degrees.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a hot one. That's gonna be rough for them out there. And they get so much heat in those sprint cars, so much heat coming around them, and then obviously the weather, they're just gonna be sweating bullets out there. But nice to see him back in a dirt car. It's been a few weeks we've talked about. He just hasn't raced the dirt. Seems like he's kinda, locking in for NASCAR. I also say it every week. I'd love to see him back in the late model, but I guess we'll just have to wait for that.
I
But
know.
nice to see some dirt racing before Kansas. I have that on the 7th, then the second race on the 8th, and then we head to Kansas practice qualifying on the 10th, and then 3 p.m. race on the 11th for Cup Series. So nice to see a little shake up. Nice to see a dirt race.
Yeah, definitely think. I mean, there's always the big debate about whether Kyle should be running so much dirt or whether he should be focusing on the Cup stuff. But like I'm a firm believer, Dylan, and I think you agree with me that it just definitely helps Kyle out when he's able to have some stuff to do during the week, some other racing to kind of get it. I mean, almost in some ways get his mind off of the pressure of the playoffs. I mean, it kind of shifts him in a different mindset for a little bit, and makes him, I think, relaxed going into Kansas on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it keeps him sharp. I mean, we talked about it after the 2021 season, media and everyone else, they threw out the question of should these other NASCAR drivers kinda veer off into other forms of racing in the off season and maybe even during the week to, kinda sharpen their skills and help them be better in Cup, and I think a lot of people just don't like it because they think it's interfering with his performance in NASCAR. I don't think that's the case. An example, I mean, Knoxville in the sprint car, he qualified on the pole in NASCAR and then went out, flew straight to Knoxville. I mean, it's not like he's putting up, just kind of tanking in the NASCAR just so he can like make it to these sprint car events and late model events, whatever. But I don't think that's the case. I think it definitely helps him in the long run. We're just kind of we have really high expectations after the 2021 season. I mean, we're in a new car. Picker has to learn a whole new deal. It's tough. We can't expect another 10-win, 11-win season with the All-Star and a championship, just every single year after that 2021 season.
So one last bit of news before we get out of here, Dylan. I think you saw it on Twitter earlier today. Kyle Larson, the crew chief. What were your thoughts on him? Tyler Mon, his spotter, actually driving the Outlaw cart out there at Cycleland Speedway in California. Owen Larson obviously was racing last night too. He picked up a 16th place finish, but he's going to be racing again tonight, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, Kyle Larson, the crew chief. Dylan, how do you think that's gonna go tonight?
Yeah, hopefully it goes pretty well. I saw it was actually pretty interesting. The car that Mon's running is actually Kyle's like old scheme from when he was a kid. That like old what was it, the 1K scheme, the red and
Yeah.
white. So that's pretty cool to see. Yeah, hopefully he does pretty well. It's nice to see a little switch up for him.
Yeah, temporarily for tonight, we're gonna be Tyler Monland on Twitter. So
Mhm.
check out some some updates of how Tyler Mon finished at Cycle Land if you're watching this on Wednesday. So I think that's all we had, Dylan, for today. But thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to the show. As always, we'll be back again next Wednesday to recap all of Kyle's racing from Silver Dollar Speedway and Kansas. And if Kyle races in anything else, we'll let you know on social media. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on track action this weekend. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you in the next episode.